Right now, as you're watching this, flames are still burning across Russia, and Vladimir Putin is running out of options to stop it. In the early morning hours of December 17th, Ukraine launched one of its most coordinated and devastating long-range drone strikes of the entire war. Multiple Russian cities woke up to the sound of explosions, oil refineries burst into flames, and the Kremlin's carefully constructed narrative about having everything under control just went up in smoke. This isn't just another attack. This is Ukraine systematically dismantling Russia's ability to fund its brutal invasion. And the results are absolutely staggering. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the implications of this strike extend far beyond one night of explosions. What we're witnessing could fundamentally reshape how this war ends. The assault began in the darkness, with Ukrainian drones penetrating deep into Russian territory. The primary target was the Slavyansk oil refinery in Krasnodar Krai, one of the largest refineries in all of Russia. Local residents reported hearing at least 18 explosions over a 3-hour period. By the time the sun rose, that refinery was burning. Ukraine's general staff confirmed the strike, posting photographic evidence of the inferno on Telegram. The Slavyansk facility processes between 5.2 and 6.25 million tons of crude oil annually. It represents roughly 2% of Russia's total refining capacity. The gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel produced here directly supply the Russian military fighting in Ukraine. This was the third confirmed strike on this single refinery since August, following attacks on both August 13th and November 30th. Ukraine is clearly sending a message: we know where your critical infrastructure is, and we will keep hitting it until it stops working. But Slavyansk wasn't the only target that night. At least 10 explosions rocked the Saratov region, home to another massive Rosneft-owned refinery capable of processing 5.8 million tons of oil per year. That facility had already been hit on December 13th. Ukraine appears to have been attempting what military analysts call a double tap, striking the same target before repairs can be completed. The Saratov refinery has been hit at least 9 times since January, with 6 of those strikes coming during the fall alone. The Engels area also came under fire. Why does that matter? Because Engels is home to one of Russia's most critical strategic bomber bases. The Engels 2 air base launches the missiles and glide bombs that terrorize Ukrainian civilians on a near-daily basis. Russia had just expanded that base in October, adding 12 new aircraft parking stands. Ukraine clearly noticed. And there's more. The Nikolaevskaya oil depot in the Rostov region was also hit, damaging a storage tank and a river vessel called the Captain Gilbert. Every gallon of fuel destroyed there is a gallon that won't reach Russian soldiers on the front lines. The small suburb of Yeysk in Krasnodar Krai reported 3 explosions and a massive fireball in the sky. That region houses a seaport Russia uses for transshipment of fuel and oil products. Another legitimate military target struck. So how is Russia responding to all of this? Predictably, the Kremlin is lying. Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed its air defenses destroyed 94 Ukrainian drones that night. They said the only damage was some minor issues with the power grid and a few homes hit by falling debris. But the math doesn't add up. Russia claims 31 drones were shot down over Krasnodar, 22 over Rostov, and 8 in Saratov. That leaves 33 drones completely unaccounted for. Where did they go? We know where at least some of them landed, directly on target. Video evidence posted by Russian citizens tells a very different story than the Kremlin's official line. Footage shows the Slavyansk refinery engulfed in flames. You can hear air defense guns rattling in the background, followed by massive explosions. Ordinary Russians are watching their country's industrial infrastructure burn while their government insists everything is fine. This disconnect between official statements and observable reality is becoming impossible for the Russian public to ignore. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Because December 17th didn't happen in isolation. Ukraine has been executing this strategy with increasing precision throughout 2025, and the cumulative impact on Russia's war machine is devastating. According to the Center for European Policy Analysis, Ukraine carried out approximately 100 strikes on Russian oil refineries and depots between September 2023 and early 2025. That was already an impressive figure. But 2025 has shattered every previous record. By December 7th, Ukraine had conducted 180 strikes on Russian oil infrastructure in 2025 alone. That's nearly double the previous 18-month total accomplished in less than 12 months. And the results are measurable. Russian refining capacity is down 25%. Moscow has banned gasoline exports through the end of the year amid a 20% domestic fuel shortage. Rosneft, Russia's oil giant, reported a 70% collapse in net income for the first 9 months of 2025, falling to just $3.57 billion. Think about what that means. Russia's ability to generate revenue from its most valuable export is being systematically destroyed. Every ruble lost is a ruble that can't pay for soldiers, ammunition, or the endless waves of assaults against Ukrainian positions. If you're finding this coverage valuable, take a second to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps us continue bringing you breaking news analysis like this. Now, the strategic logic behind Ukraine's campaign is crystal clear. Helima Croft, the global head of commodity strategy at RBC Capital Markets, explained it perfectly to CNN. The idea is that you cannot allow Russia to retain so much of its critical energy revenue that has been fueling the massive manpower recruitment advantage Moscow has over Ukraine. In November alone, Ukraine broke its monthly record by hitting at least 14 Russian refineries. Russia's refining volume has dropped by between 300,000 and 500,000 barrels of oil per day. Yes, Russia still refines 5 million barrels daily. But in a campaign of 1,000 cuts, Ukraine has inflicted the first few dozen. And it's proving it will keep sending drones and missiles with increasing frequency. What used to be occasional strikes meant to cause damage has become a sustained effort to keep refineries from ever fully stabilizing. When attacks happen at a rate of roughly 1 every 2 days, it becomes nearly impossible for Russia to complete repairs before the next strike arrives. It's a brilliant strategy of persistent pressure. But there's another dimension to this campaign that extends beyond economics. Think about those videos shot by ordinary Russian citizens. People whose lives were disrupted by drones flying overhead, air defenses firing rounds into the night sky, and massive explosions lighting up facilities near their homes. Ukraine's strikes don't just have a tangible impact on Russia's military. They have a profound psychological impact on Russia's people. Russian society is increasingly seeing videos of burning warehouses, refineries, and military installations in regions that until recently were considered the deep rear. Safe zones that are no longer safe. The Kremlin keeps insisting everything is under control, that every drone was shot down, that any damage was merely from debris. But with each successful Ukrainian strike resulting in footage shared across platforms like Telegram, that facade is crumbling. There are signs that ordinary Russians are growing tired of this war. A June survey revealed that 50% of respondents wanted peace talks with Ukraine. Only 39% supported continuing Putin's so-called special military operation. That's a remarkable shift in a country where expressing dissent can land you in prison. And here's perhaps the most telling statistic. Russians have been buying antidepressants at record rates. 13 million packets in 2022, 15 million in 2023, 16 million in 2024. In just the first half of 2025, sales already exceeded 9 million, putting Russia on track for 18 million packets by year's end. These are not the numbers of a happy population confident in their government's leadership. Ukraine understands this perfectly. Unhappy Russians means pressure on Putin. And when faltering military displays, burning refineries, and mounting economic losses compound that pressure, Ukraine may find a path to ending this war without having to destroy every single Russian soldier that enters its territory. Over 1.19 million Russian casualties, as reported by Ukraine's Ministry of Finance, speak to the tremendous human cost already paid. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps getting bolder. On December 14th, just 3 days before the massive refinery assault, Ukrainian forces attacked an oil rig in the Caspian Sea, forcing the complete shutdown of 14 oil wells. That strike demonstrated Ukraine's ability to project power across enormous distances and hit targets Russia never imagined were vulnerable. The message to Putin couldn't be clearer. Nowhere in Russia is safe. Not your refineries, not your air bases, not your oil depots, not even your offshore drilling platforms in distant waters. As we approach 2026, Ukraine shows no signs of slowing down. The campaign against Russian oil infrastructure has evolved from opportunistic strikes into a systematic dismantling of Russia's ability to wage war. Every refinery hit, every depot destroyed, every ship damaged represents fuel that won't reach Russian troops and revenue that won't fill Kremlin coffers. Vladimir Putin started this war expecting a quick victory. Nearly 3 years later, his own territory burns while his economy bleeds. The question now isn't whether Ukraine can sustain this pressure. The question is how much more punishment Russia's military machine can absorb before something finally breaks. Stay with us for continuing coverage as this critical story develops. The flames in Slavyansk may eventually be extinguished, but Ukraine's campaign to turn off Russia's economic valve is just getting started.